concern is the consortium of senior business leaders in the state of Colorado. And many of you will know that a couple of years ago, we dipped our oar in the water of transportation, public policy, and we really felt like, based on the input that we were getting from our members, from the input that we're seeing through all of the publicly available studies, whether it be an engineering study, a consumer report, all the way down to some of the digital apps that track driving. By every measure, we were falling further behind in our transportation spending. Really, ultimately, the lane miles that we were putting down on the road. And there are other modes of transportation, as we all know. But for our part, we wanted to really take a leap forward as a business community and get ourselves caught back up with respect to getting our roads up to snuff, getting people out of traffic, giving them their lives back, putting them on safer roads. That was our whole approach, very basic. And so for about 2 years, and it seemed about like 15 years, but for about 2 years, we worked with a wonderful coalition of about 50 partners, business organizations, other civic organizations from around the state. And we aligned ourselves around the idea of developing some kind of revenue model that would support spending on this 10-year plan that the Department of Transportation has. And it occurred to us since the bill passed, and we're so pleased that the bill did pass. It occurred to us that with the subject as complex as transportation planning and spending, it is really a good thing for the public to keep up with and see how the project is working out, see how the money is flowing through. And we reached out to the Department of Transportation. They were immediately receptive to the idea of our hosting this Zoom call, and perhaps there will be things subsequent to this with other updates, so that they could go and tell the story about what they're doing on the 10-year plan. So we're very happy about it. It was a bill. It was a legislative bill, and like all legislative bills, especially big ones, there's things in there that people can nitpick, but we really, and we nitpick ourselves, but we really tried to focus on keeping the main thing, which was try to get the resources to the Department of Transportation so that they could catch our roads up, get them to a state of good repair, get these capacity projects in the ground, and move Colorado and really help Coloradans enjoy the great quality of life that they all want, that we want, and also to help improve the flow of goods and services here in the state. So with that, I just say welcome again. We're going to hear from a few really fabulous professionals in this area. And I won't steal the thunder of other folks, but you'll hear from our Director of Transportation, you'll hear from our Governor, you'll hear from Greg Fulton, and you'll hear from Kathy Hall, Transportation Commission member. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to one of the executive committee members of the organization that we all stood up together called A Way Forward, and his name is Greg Fulton. Greg, I'd like to make a few comments, and then Greg will make an introduction to Kathy. Good morning, Greg.
Morning, and I just want to thank him. I'm looking like I'm in the dark on this, but hopefully my light will come back on that here. But first, I want to thank for the opportunity, and I'm excited about the whole future for us related to Senate Bill 260 and what it means for our industry. As Mike mentioned, we have been, along with others in the business community, for a number of years involved in trying to get a package like this through. Our people, more than anyone, see in terms of like the problems that are out there, the bottlenecks and the challenges. Unlike others who may work in an office, our office is our highway system. That's where we conduct our activities and others. And when we have problems out there in terms of the congestion that's been there, some of the safety issues that are out there that have been existing for, I think haven't been able to be addressed because of funding for a number of years. it stresses the, it effectively hits at the heart of, not only for us, but those people who are shipping and customers and everyone else in terms of all consumers. I will just note, let me note, I think what's happened here and the timing of the passing of this measure is an important one. In the last 2 years, as we've been in this pandemic, I think all of us have seen the importance of our transportation system and our supply chain. All of us have experienced some of the problems associated with those difficulties in the supply chain, whether it was shortages, delays, or other matters. Part of this problem has been, the lack of investment in this transportation infrastructure, not only in Colorado, but throughout the country. Maybe more dramatic here because it's been so many years since we've made an investment really in this. This is the first really major investment in this. I will note that one of the things that was behind some of those problems is that we have bottlenecks out there that have just grown worse. And that creates this congestion and delays. And how this fits into the supply chain issue is if we have drivers being delayed, we have certain requirements relating to hours of service, how long we can be out there. Essentially what we're doing is we're running out of hours and we're actually wasting time sitting in traffic there, which means we need more drivers, more trucks, and other things like this. We see Senate Bill 260 and the 10-year plan there as being a major path forward in terms of addressing these problems. We are looking forward to be a participant in all this. I want to thank, Director Liu. I want to thank the Transportation Commission. I want to thank the sponsors and the legislators. I think a lot of people felt this was a long shot at the beginning of getting this bill through. And I think it's a testament to all the folks, and particularly even my friend Mike Kopp, who chaired our coalition, and that we were able to get this done. I think one of the things that's an important aspect of this bill too is it's going to help actually in building some more resiliency into the network. Unfortunately, we have had and we will continue to have in the future certain natural disasters or events out there. And we need to have some ability actually to detours or others that are reasonable out there. And I am very excited about all this. I want to thank everybody on here. I'm happy to answer any questions later. But it is my pleasure, though, to introduce Commissioner Kathy Hall, who I've known for a number of years. And she does an outstanding job in representing the West Slope interests, and she's been very key in all of this as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Hall.
Thank you very much, Mike and Greg, for those very kind words and for the opportunity to present our 10-year plan and the difference it can make for people who need to get where they're going and for goods to make it to market. We as transportation commissioners worked with the statewide Transportation Advisory Committee, known as STAC, and our very excellent CDOT staff to develop this 10-year plan. It was vitally important that we created a program that met the needs that people identified. And those were identified through all 64 county meetings, and it delivered improvements in an equitable way throughout the state. What you see in this plan are projects that are each worthwhile in their own right, and when taken together, they are greater than the sum of their parts. The plan thoughtfully improves transportation throughout Colorado in ways that best meet the very different needs we have across the state. We also made a series of tough calls about which projects could get funded with the dollars we have available and which projects would have to wait and hope for more funding to come. We are certainly grateful these funds are coming and we can complete the work we identified as being so important to our state's future. Thanks to the new and stable funding that Senate Bill 260 provides, and we can complete the vision and deliver on the promise for all Coloradans, which is very important. Transportation is the lifeblood of our state. Thank you for the opportunity for us to be here with all of you today.
Thanks very much, Kathy. Well, folks, our next item on the agenda, you were also brief. The next item on the agenda, excuse me, is to welcome our governor. He'll be joining us in a couple of minutes. Director Liu, would you like to make any of your presentation prior to the governor coming on?
Absolutely. I can do a little bit of my top line framing, and then we can cut off whenever the governor joins us, and I can go into the details. How does that sound?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll hold on pulling up the slides until after the governor comes. But I just want to say, by way of introduction, thank you so much to everybody for being here today. Thank you, Mike, and the Way Forward Coalition for convening us. I think it's an extraordinary group of people that came together to get this historic measure done last year. And the fact that we're continuing to bring the group together, not just having gotten the bill done, but through implementation, speaks volumes about the kind of sustained commitment and interest of everybody involved here in seeing this through. I want to recognize as well the legislative sponsors, and we talked a little bit with them earlier this week about the report coming out, and I know they're eagerly awaiting seeing the progress in real time. And I want to recognize in absentia Tony Milo, who's one of the key Way Forward Coalition members, who was not able to join us today. But the construction industry as a whole, really deserve a hats off for the work that they've done through the very difficult period of the pandemic. I think one of the things that this report will highlight is just how much they got done in circumstances that were not ideal over the last couple of years. And, it speaks to their commitment to keeping one foot ahead of the other, and just to the kind of can-do attitude of everybody involved in executing our 10-year plan. Now, what the report is, which we will talk through the highlights and look forward to releasing later today, there's sort of seasons in the transportation industry, and over the summer and into the fall, we get our projects done, and the end of the year is kind of a time to reflect as it gets cold, and we cease to be able to have that as much progress on the construction side. It's a time to reflect on what we've been able to do. So what we did at the year's end, at the recommendation of the folks on this call, is to pull together kind of a synopsis of everything that we've done and everything that's coming into the year ahead, with a focus on what that gets us in terms of being on the trajectory towards getting our 10-year plan done. It shows a lot of progress. It shows where we're headed over the next year. And one of the things that I think is important about the study that's coming out is that it's not written for the people who build it, but for the people who use it. And we've talked a lot about transparency and accountability, which were importantly tenets of SB 260, and there's a lot of really critical requirements thanks to the work of our legislative sponsors. But there's also a need to be able to reflect and talk back to the people who use the system in plain language about what the projects are, where they are, and what they'll do to make our lives better. So the spirit in which we pulled together this report is trying to explain it in lay people's terms so that it's accessible, not just for the industry and for the many of the folks who are on this call and have a lot of depth on what we do, but for the drivers who will be looking for a way to understand how the improvements to the roadways over the last year and into the next kind of improve the places where they drive, where they commute, and the system as they use it. I also, by way of introduction, want to build on a point that Greg made about the challenges that we faced to the supply chain over the last couple of years. We can't underscore enough how much this just adds to a situation that was challenging before, but also reinforces the importance of why this work matters so much, right? I mean, we all know that there are big forces at play that have made the day-to-day of everything from getting supplies from farm to the distribution network, to the grocery store, things that we often took for granted too much before this pandemic, made all of those harder, but also reminded people why they're important. And, we need not look farther than our own interstate system to be reminded of what that means when we think about infrastructure. And, I'll highlight one example of just the way that this comes to bear. One of the things that we built this year was a new runaway truck ramp at Vail Pass. And I think when we were visiting that site, Greg pointed out that, he's never seen a ribbon cutting for a runaway truck ramp before. And that's, that's exactly the kind of thing we need to be drawing attention to right now with the challenges in the supply chain. And I think the governor is here, so we will turn to him.
Thank you, Shoshana. We'll be happy to get back to you briefly. Governor, good morning.
Thank you. That was Shoshana was just talking about the runaway truck ramp on Vail Pass. Not only is that a really important safety issue for truckers, but it also will prevent closures and severe accidents that would delay traffic in a very perilous area, especially during inclement weather. We really, safety and efficiency of vehicle movement really go hand in hand. And a lot of the work that we've done, including snow tires in winter in the high country, are also around reducing closures and traffic, promoting safety, and keeping traffic flowing. And that's what's so important. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Colorado Concern, a Way Forward Coalition. As we look to Colorado's future, we have a lot to celebrate in the transportation and infrastructure place last year. I mean, Colorado is in a totally different place than we were 2 years ago, mostly because of two things. One is the Bipartisan Federal Infrastructure Act, and the second is Senate Bill 260. Last year, and the two work together to help us meet our needs. Last year, I was so proud to sign Senate Bill 260 that really fundamentally prepares Colorado for the future and how we move people and goods and services efficiently. I want to thank our legislative partners, of course, Colorado Concern, a Way Forward, but of course, the legislators who helped carry it, Speaker Garnett, Representative Gray, Senator Fenberg, Senator Winter. Of course, we thank Senator Priola for his bipartisan support, along with Mayor Suthers and Mayor Kaufman. The Way Forward was really essential in getting this done, in solving this vexing issue that had plagued Colorado for years. And while we look at the excitement of where we are with House Bill 260 and Federal Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, it's important to look at what the default would have been had they not gotten done. Things would have gotten much worse over the next decade with deteriorating funding streams, increased need. Rather than getting worse, they're getting better. Of course, if you in and around transportation projects, nothing changes overnight. Even the most wonderful construction, when it's done, there's men at work signs there for a while, and it's challenging, and contracts have to go out, supplies have to be purchased. But fundamentally, we have the mechanisms in place to prepare Colorado for a successful future. I know that CDOT Director Shoshana Liu was just speaking. She will go into, and I think she already started talking about some of the ways Senate Bill 260 is transforming the course of transportation in Colorado. We will get our 10-year plan for capital construction built in less than 10 years. I always push her. I say, is it 8 years? Is it 9 years? But it's less than 10 years. She's comfortable with me saying that. Maybe that's 9 years and 11 months. Maybe it's 8 years, but we're going to get it done. And we're excited that with the new federal infrastructure funding, we're going to be able to do even more. There's a lot of areas, that relate to how we move. And I mean, even part of the federal infrastructure package is broadband infrastructure, right? Enabling more telecommuting and people being able to work or take college courses online from home. Our housing agenda around more affordable housing opportunities closer to where people work, reduce traffic, cleaner air, and of course, save families money on fuel. I want to share with you a few of the highlights from a transportation perspective of the last year. First, we opened the South Gap I-25 express lanes ahead of schedule and under budget. What's better than that? It was about a year ahead of schedule. And we also completed major construction of bridges and wildlife crossings. Wildlife crossings are another example of reducing accidents, which saves both human lives and animal lives, but also significantly improving traffic flow, because every time there is an accident, even if nobody winds up being injured, there's often a closure and a backup. And the wildlife crossings are a very efficient way to make sure that we're, especially as Colorado expands into the wildland interface, to be able to be good neighbors and safe neighbors to the various animals that already live there. We're also completing the biggest transportation project in the state history by the expansion of Central I-70. That's one I inherited, of course, but we're going to be the ones that complete it. Massive engineering, new park, neighborhoods that were split will be united. And of course, I want to thank CDOT and the work they've done, and Shoshana and her team's ingenuity for reopening Highway 70 through Glenwood Canyon to traffic just 2 weeks after mudslides that dumped thousands of tons of boulder and debris, and even completely destroyed tracks of that highway, open within 2 weeks. Absolutely remarkable to the whole CDOT team for doing that. But we're also and of course, we're also excited about the Floyd Hill expansion, a key pinch point of mountain access, another lane each direction, fully operational for that 12, 14-mile stretch. We're also preparing for the electric vehicle revolution. It's really remarkable. It's already here. Just last month, we got the figures in. About 13% of vehicles sold in Colorado were electric vehicles. And that is even before EVs enter some of the important categories for Colorado consumers, like pickup trucks. We'll have the Ford Lightning entering that space next year. Currently, EVs compete in many spaces, but that is up from about 9% just a few months before. So it is the tipping point. And thanks to your work on House Bill 260, the fast charging infrastructure will be built, is being built. We're also connecting the state with more than just roads. Our state-funded transit service, Bustang, is a huge success. We've restored Bustang to even more than pre-COVID-19 levels. Using strong safety protocols, we've added service to Craig and Telluride. We're going to add more service to Sterling and Greeley and Trinidad. Enormous demand for the Bustang service, and we're launching a new Highway 70 mountain corridor service called Pegasus that features agile shuttles that can use the Mountain Express lanes to get people quickly to ski towns. So really a lot of great work that CDOT is doing, moving people, facilitating the movement of goods. We're also excited about bolstering the Revitalizing Main Street program. This is infrastructure in main streets across rural and urban Colorado for safety, for traffic flow, for making it safe for multimodal, for encouraging and making it safe for Main Street businesses. I'll just give an example. The city of Montrose invested our Revitalizing Main Street dollars in creating a plaza close to Main Street that makes it safer and easier for businesses to access customers. It resealed pavement, it installed traffic barriers, built an American with Disabilities Act ramp so people with disabilities could shop, added tables and planters in a nice, safe public area. Fort Morgan added signage and road markings and bike racks and a pedestrian outdoor seating on their Main Street. So these kinds of investments aren't just about safety and traffic flow. They're frankly about economic revitalization of rural Colorado and small towns. And it's really exciting to see those funds go to work, and we'll look forward to doing that even more. And the benefits aren't limited to rural Colorado. Lakewood used funds to construct a crosswalk on the 40 West Art Line crossing, connecting shops and restaurants and parks and housing within the creative district. We're looking at additional funding with the support of the legislature to support this kind of transformative work in even more communities, meaning safety, mobility, economic revitalization, all of the above. Of course, we're also excited about the Federal Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. It's a rare opportunity to really show Colorado's competitiveness. We are rapidly preparing for maximizing what Colorado gets out of the competitive aspects of that as the different programs come online. We will also get some formulaic money. We really believe there's an opportunity to effectively double Colorado's share of funding when we're successful with grant applications, and many of them require state match. Our budget proposal includes some money for matching funds. We're working closely with Joint Budget Committee on those details to maximize what we can bring to Colorado from the Federal Infrastructure Act. And that's also where our local communities can play a key role. As we get guidance around the different funding pots of this program and the competitions, we want to work closely with local communities, in some cases additional matching funds from local communities, in some cases support from local communities, to make sure they get the funds they need to invest in their roads, improving the overall infrastructure of Colorado. Before House Bill 260, there was a great danger in Colorado, of course, for the degradation of our infrastructure, but also a danger for the balkanization of our infrastructure. If there was no statewide solution, the counties that could were going to solve it where they could. And some can go to the ballot and get their funding. What we would have lost is we would have lost support for rural Colorado, and we would have lost interconnectivity. And in today's day and age, both of those are so important, and that's what House Bill 260 allows Colorado to preserve: a cohesive transportation system. Because when you live in Arapahoe County and you work in Adams and your kids go to school in Denver, you're not paying attention to what jurisdiction it is in. You just want less traffic and to be able to get where you want to go as efficiently as possible. That's what we will deliver on, thanks to the work of House Bill 260 and the Bipartisan Federal Infrastructure Act. After decades of falling behind on infrastructure, we've now reached a moment where we are working to build tomorrow's Colorado, thanks to Colorado Concern and thanks to this coalition. The 10-year plan has input and support of people across the entire state. And I appreciate everyone here today and who helped this planning process early in our administration. I also want to highlight that while we want to continue some of the savings to people under House Bill 260, namely, we want to reduce vehicle registration fees. We're working with the legislature to save people another $11 for another year. We're not seeking that to come out of transportation funding. What we want to use is one-time funds to hold transportation whole and to reduce vehicle registration fees by $11. So I just wanted to make sure people knew that, because some people thought somehow this was a cut to transportation. It's not. Thanks to the transformative investments in Senate Bill 260, our legislative sponsors, the outside coalition, we got it done. If it was easy, it would have been done. We're never afraid to take on the big challenges. We took it on with you. We got it done. Each of you today is a leader in your community, your organization, your company. We're going to need your leadership as we continue working to protect and improve the Colorado way of life in our state. Thank you for your continued leadership, for your commitment to making our state a better connected one where people and goods can move safely and free. The other part of our budget, when we're talking about delaying any fees on gas, that also we hold transportation harmless. So make sure people know no one's talking about taking a dime away from transportation. We're just talking about making sure we address the temporary pain and difficulty that people feel by increasing the savings on reducing the vehicle registration fees and making sure there's not in the short term any fee increase on gas. But again, we want to fund every dime that is promised for transportation, and maybe then some, because we're also actually talking about in the clean air package some transportation adjacent investments, including investments in clean trucking, including investments in e-bikes for people to be able to commute to work, potentially adding, we have these 3 enterprises and they can get 10% of their fund from the general fund every year. So we could give them a kickstart, one-time kickstart with general fund money. It's only $3 or $4 million. So there's a lot of exciting additional investments that are on the table. We'll look forward to working with you to get it done. Thanks for all your work thus far, and I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thanks so much, Governor. I've shared this with you before, but it can't be said enough. Obviously, without your leadership, just your very clear-eyed, consistent leadership, the bill never would have been signed into law. And I just, Governor, if you don't mind, I'd like to just point out one aspect of this. These are my words, not your words, but as an observer, this is not a perfect partisan solution, certainly for the Republicans and also for the Democrats. As our coalition looked at this, that sort of became clear early. We thought, there almost needs to be a third category because what we're trying to accomplish here doesn't really fit neatly in either of the major political categories, and we just got to find sort of a solution category. And I just want to acknowledge that we recognize that there's always political peril and those kinds of things. And so we really applaud you, Governor, for being so clear-eyed. I can only imagine that there are aspects of this that you don't love, and probably that goes for all the sponsors and people that voted for it and even members of the coalition. But at the end of the day, we are in a place now to improve our transportation situation in the state. it absolutely could not have been done without your steady hand at the tiller. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, and thanks to the coalition. As I like to say in politics and in life, if it was easy, it would have been done already. So the easy things being done, it leaves the hard things to us. We're very excited about the coalition, and as you said, nobody got everything they wanted, but at the end of the day, it fundamentally creates a landscape that supports our roads and infrastructure in a way that Colorado just hasn't had. And that's important for our business community. It's important for our quality of life. It's important for air quality. It's important for people who are frustrated. It's not just about economics. What's the price of missing your kid's soccer game at 5 o'clock because you're stuck in traffic? It's priceless. It's about all those things. And working with Shoshana and working with you, we're gonna not only save people time and money, but get it done.
Thank you. And thanks for hiring Director Lou. That was a great coup that you managed. So thanks again, Governor. Director Lou, I'd like to turn it over to you now. And I didn't get an opportunity to properly welcome you. It has been such a delight for the members of the coalition to work with you. And one thing I've learned by working with you over the last couple of years, that your office and your team are very accessible. You're accessible to everybody. And I've seen that. People that have incredible environmental passions and they want information. The trucking people, they want information. The business people, they want information. And I just have found that your transparency and diligence to just get information out to everybody in really a trustworthy manner, I think has been really transformative personally at the Department of Transportation. So I want to thank you for that. But anyway, I know you're here to present on where we're headed with the 10-year plan. So people didn't come here to listen to me. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Mike. Zoe, can you please pull up the slides? And cognizant that we've gone through a lot of the kind of policy developments, I'm going to head right into the sort of specifics of this presentation. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier that we are releasing a report today that kind of coalesces the accomplishments of 2021 and gives a preview of where we're headed going into 2022, with really a focus on what this means for where we are in delivery of our 10-year plan, but also highlighting some of the other incredible work at the Colorado Department of Transportation, like our State of Good Repair program, which includes not only the external work, but the fine work of the men and women in our maintenance division, as well as the kind of emergencies that we've had to face, like the situation in Glenwood Canyon. And I think I will leave it at that because there will be opportunity for everyone to review the report later today when it goes out. To sort of synthesize some of the key accomplishments that this report really highlights, this just gives you some of the sort of fast facts, the number of projects, the mileage of rural roads that have been completed this year, building on almost as many last year. And something I'll highlight about that is about a third of those rural road miles are specifically because of the capital projects in the 10-year plan. So that's above and beyond the base program. And it just shows the tremendous geographic diversity of our plan as a whole, combined with the major projects, most of which are in the metro areas. Next slide, please. This is just a geographic depiction of where the projects are, intended to give you a sense of the breadth, and we will share these slides after, but really the point here is to show that the progress that we've made is everywhere in the state. And, in every corner and crevice, our team is hard at work on the roads, fixing them and making them better for folks across the state of Colorado. Next slide, please. I want to dig in a little bit into where we are on delivering the 10-year plan as a whole. As folks may recall, there were kind of two segments. There were the first 4 years of our 10-year plan, which we envisioned funding through the prior Senate Bill 267 primarily. And then there were 6 years that we included in the 10-year plan, kind of on a leap of faith that there would be a funding solution to be able to pay for it. And that is exactly where the ability to now plan with the resources from Senate Bill 260, as well as the federal dollars, comes into play. As a whole, we are almost done, as you can see, with those first 4 years of the program. And that's kind of the projects that are done or are underway and funded. And we're more than 40% done with the 10-year plan as a whole, and we are not 4 years into it. So it gives you a sense that we are moving at a steady clip. working together with the folks at CDOT, our contracting partners, really everyone in this coalition to get these projects done across the state. Next slide, please. I think we've covered this, so let's go to the next slide. I'm going to turn a little bit to digging in on the brass tacks of what we're getting done in every part of the state's program by CDOT planning region, which is kind of how we organize our work. And just want to give a flavor. What I'm going to highlight is not every project, and the report, which I hope folks will take the time to read, is much more comprehensive. But I want to give a flavor for the projects that we're getting done, really in each of our 5 CDOT planning regions. So starting with CDOT Region 1, which is the Denver metropolitan area, this was a big year. We opened the I-25 gap express lanes ahead of schedule, as folks heard a couple months ago. We finished the westbound I-70 Mountain Express lane, which once Floyd Hill is completed, will significantly expand the contiguous stretch and have multiple options to help folks get into the mountains. We acquired the Burnham Yard property, which is a very strategic purchase. And we made progress on a lot of, next slide, please. We made progress on a lot of other projects, which are not only being done by CDOT, but some together with our partners. And one thing that I want to take a moment to focus on is that one of the key programs in the 10-year plan was called the Safer Main Streets program. And that was intended as a collaborative investment with Dr. Cog and with our local partners to make sure that we're thinking about our system as one, right? Now, the traveling public doesn't see the difference whether it's a CDOT project or a local project. So what this enabled us to do is really work with our local partners to invest in some of their key priorities alongside ours. And this just gives you a flavor for some of those projects that are under construction and getting underway across the Denver metropolitan area. There are others too, and really, I think, open new doors for collaboration between state and local government. I'll highlight the I-70 noise wall replacement. This is one of the first projects that we paid for with the upfront funds from Senate Bill 260. This is something that often gets pushed off because it's not as high profile as other projects, but it makes a big difference for quality of life for people in those neighborhoods who live near highways. So when we think about taking care of the communities near highways, this is the kind of stuff that when we get it off the shelf and get it done, it makes a big difference for people's lives. The Floyd Hill project we've talked about a great deal, and this is actively in procurement now. And because of Senate Bill 260, we were able to get that Pegasus project that the governor funded added onto the package, and there will be more to say on that in the coming weeks and months. Looking ahead to some of the key things that are starting in 2022, I just want to highlight these key I-70 bridge projects that are getting underway. These are just great examples. We were actually out there with some members of our federal delegation earlier this week. These are projects that have needed to get done for a long, long time. You can see the decay. You can see where the pieces of the bridge could be falling down if we don't fix them, and we are finally getting these done. Next slide, please. Moving to Southeast Colorado, just a plethora of projects that are getting done, have gotten done, and are underway. Highlighting just a few, US 50 Texas Creek is a rural road project that our team is very proud of, on a key artery, but in an area between population centers so that it was, didn't get the repairs it deserved for a long time. You can, there are descriptions of all of these in the report, but the theme across these projects highlighted on the slide is that they're really important rural arterials that connect many parts of our economy and places. And all of these roads are ones that you'll see in other slides too, because they don't see the geographic boundaries of our planning regions, because they take people all across the state. Next slide, please. This is just a bit on what's coming and what's underway. Some really, really important projects here, and I wish I had time to go through each of these in detail, but to highlight a few, a military access, mobility, and safety improvement project is something that's very near and dear to all of us, and where the progress that we're making is just incredible. This is an initiative that we designed with our partners in the Pikes Peak area and the Department of Defense, to think about how we preserve the defense needs of our road system. And we were able to secure a big federal grant along with the investments in our 10-year plan. That's underway. The US 50 in Purcell interchange is one that was a high priority for the Pueblo area for a long time. Research and Powers in Colorado Springs, big priority for the area, and one where the investments from that first set of dollars coming through Senate Bill 260 are allowing us to plan for the next big project on Powers Boulevard. So that's that's something that we know is a priority for the region, and you can see that there's other projects that are breaking ground this season to complement the ones that will make more progress once we hit construction season again. Next slide, please. Northwest Colorado, a lot of really important projects getting done and well underway. Colorado 9 in Summit County is one of the, as many folks will recognize, a key arterial for both the people who live there and the people who visit in the ecotourism economy. Getting that project done was many years in the making. The US 50 Grand Junction to Delta repairs, I will it introduces what many called the Delta dips or the roller coaster for a long time. It was a very difficult to drive segment of 50, which for years needed to be fixed, and is that project broke ground this past season and has is well underway. Little Blue Canyon, the next project on 50, is a challenging project that's needed to get done for some time and made a lot of progress this year. The I-70B is right in the heart of Grand Junction, and the intersection of First and Grand is almost done. Actually just got to see it last week, and a lot of progress this season while we work with the city on that next stretch, which is an incredible collaboration, again, between the state and our local partner. And we'll just highlight that last project, the improvements on 24 right by Leadville, also a 10-year plan project that was long in the works. Next slide, please. Looking ahead to some of the projects that are coming up the pike. Colorado 92 is a rural road project that was much needed for a long time and is getting started. And the Colorado 13 reconstruction in Garfield County, again, is one of those projects that was paid for with the upfront funds in SB 260. This is a pretty large project for that area, especially in one that, again, many years in the works, with wider shoulders, drainage improvements, wildlife underpass, really important project. And the auxiliary lanes on I-70 are in an area where I think folks will recognize there's a lot of traffic, a lot of through traffic, a lot of tourist traffic, and this auxiliary lane will help to provide much needed redundancy. Next slide, please. Looking a bit at Northeast Colorado, a lot of projects underway right now. Since we're running out of time, I'm just going to do a quick highlight. We talk a lot about I-25. We talk a little bit less about the needs on I-76 in the Eastern Plains. One of the things, again, that we were able to do with those upfront funds from Senate Bill 260 was make a major down payment in concrete repairs along I-76. This is a stretch that is responsible for a lot of our bad ratings with the Federal Highway Administration, and being able to invest in repairing this stretch, which is a key freight corridor, is just something that was a long time coming, and we're so thrilled to have been able to advance. Next slide, please. And I think we don't have time to go through all of these, but here's a little bit of a sort of synopsis of some of the projects that are going on. And again, they balance everything from rural road investments to some of these Main Street projects that the governor so eloquently mentioned in his remarks. Let's go to the next slide, just to make sure that we catch a bit of Southwest Colorado. Completing major projects, and some of these are, again, those rural road investments that were long needed. A major project at 550 and 160 in Durango, made immense progress this year, and this is one of the biggest projects that's ever been done in that region, being constructed by Lawrence Construction, well underway. That picture in the bottom right corner is the wildlife underpass being constructed on 160, and there's an overpass too, and it's being combined with a safety and state of good repair project on the surface itself. It's a really unique project that just shows a lot of ingenuity in bringing different project components together to deliver safety on our rural roads. Next slide, please. And this, again, just gives you a bit of a sense of what's coming ahead. And you'll see a lot of improvements on 160, right? I mean, this is a major, major arterial for the Four Corners region. So the fact that there's a coordinated effort to improve 160 is much like the work that's being done on a corridor-wide basis on other routes like 287 and 50, where we really have to think about these secondary arterials, which are critical for getting people across and through the state and for that redundancy relative to our interstate system. Next slide, please. I think we are running out of time, so I'm going to close by just showing you this picture that is endeavoring. We covered Main Street, so let's go back to the last slide. This just gives a sense of the scope of improvements across the I-70 corridor, and I think I'll close with this: that there's just been a lot of focus on coordinated improvements, big and small, on the Mountain Corridor, which will continue. But I hope that as folks drive it this winter, you see some of those improvements in progress and an easier driving experience in places like Vail Pass, where we did a major resurfacing over the last construction season. And I think we are 2 minutes over time. So Annalise, I'm going to turn it back to you for next steps.
Okay, I think we have set aside a few minutes for questions from the folks on the call. Is that right, Annalise? Do I have our order correct here?
Yes, if anyone has a question, that would be great.
Okay.
Otherwise, we can wrap up.
Yeah.
This is Kathy, the chairman of the commissioners. If I may make one more comment, since I don't see any questions. I just wanted to make sure that everyone that's listening in understands that when we put together this 10-year plan, it was very important that the staff, Shoshana and the staff, went to all 64 counties. And so this was truly not just sitting in Denver planning something. They had really worked all over the whole state to put this together so that it benefited. And the fact that we've done so much rural road paving is unprecedented in the last many years of CDOT. I just think that's important for everyone to hear.
Thank you, Chair Hall. And if I can tag in one other comment, knowing that we might have a few more minutes, though some folks probably have to drop. This morning I was sort of rereading that first list of projects that the transportation approved for the upfront funds from Senate Bill 260, and we talked about some of those ones that are underway right now. And it's always kind of neat in transportation that you get a chance to talk about the projects in planning, then you get to talk about when the dollars get tied to projects, and there's always a lag until that shovel gets in the ground. And even looking to the decisions the Transportation Commission made a few months ago, the fact that you can see some of those ideas that they talked about, somewhat in the abstract, really turning into work where folks are actually out on the road right now, and also get a flavor for what's coming in the next couple of years is, it's neat to be able to see that amount of progress all kind of coalescing at once. And, that as we get these projects underway, there are other projects that are now funded that will take a year or two to matriculate. But where we now have a cadence where we move from that moment of funding to delivery faster than ever. Right, Mike or Annalise, anything?
I was just pausing to make just to see if anybody wanted to get in here. Before we let you scoot off, Director Liu, could you talk a little bit about sort of the final, or maybe this is a question for the commissioner, but could you talk about where we wound up with the final rule? I think a lot of people are trying to get their hands around, what took place, what happens, does it stop building, does it not stop building? Do you mind just sharing some color on that?
Absolutely, Mike, and Kathy, feel free to chime in. I think the short answer to your question is no, it absolutely does not stop building. And, to the contrary, what it does is add conversations earlier into the planning process so that by the time we get to building, you're not having those hard conversations about, the kind of measurements and impact. the rule is very deliberately constructed in a way that asks questions, consistent with the requirements in Senate Bill 260 about how significant projects impact the environment. And those are important questions to ask, much like for a long, long time, we've asked those questions about ozone in the transportation infrastructure space. We have those conversations about community impacts under the National Environmental Policy Act. There's a long history of doing analysis of different variables that can bring to bear when you build infrastructure projects. But, I actually think what the rule does in its finality is it really pushes to have those conversations when you're doing advanced planning and not when you're trying to, get your clearances to build the project. The way I think about this, the Central 70 project, which is folks in the Denver area know is well underway. And, you can see it being, actually very close to complete. That took over a decade to plan because the hard conversations about impacts to the environment and the community just kept getting pushed off, right? Everyone was arguing about the modeling, and the environmental impact statement took like a decade plus to do. If you had those conversations at the beginning, you could have avoided that back and forth and just had it out at the beginning. So I think when the rule is sort of fully implemented with standard operating procedures, what it will do is push those to the earlier stages of the project, so you kind of get it through and then can get to building. And I think what I see in the delivery of the 10-year plan is that we've really gotten into a clip where once a project is funded, we move to just building it. And that, as a whole, as we have important policy conversations that need to be had, we're really focused on having planning in the planning phase. And then when you get to delivery, we're focused on getting it done on time and on budget.
And just to add in on that, Mike, this was really a very difficult task for commissioners and certainly for staff. And as you know, they had 10 statewide meetings. So the staff, I have to give them a lot of credit. They worked really hard to try to get a full scope from around the state and give people all over the state an opportunity to weigh in on this. It's going to be a rule that it's going to take time for us to work through it. And then we've left the option in there that at different times we find something that isn't working, it can be opened and figured out how to work it better. So it's new. It's something we've not had in Colorado. And so it's going to take us all time to work through it and see how it does work. We're all very open-minded about it was a very difficult task for all of us, and certainly been something I personally have struggled with and had a lot of sleepless nights over it, I have to admit. And so we'll see how it works and see how we can, if we ever need to improve it or change things about it, we do have that opportunity to open it and revisit. Does that help at all?
Thank you very much. Yes. I think that's great. I think a lot of people are, talking about it and they don't weren't necessarily involved. So there's a lot of details involved here and they hear things. So I'm really glad you both addressed that. Thanks for that. I don't know if
Mike, if I can just say one more thing, building on what you just said, one of the reasons a lot of the folks in the transportation community asked the Transportation Commission and CDOT to work on this rather than the Air Quality Control Commission is because we're deep in the throes of implementation, right? We're all pragmatists. We all, have a lot of equity in getting the plan done. And, it was a hard thing for the Transportation Commission as a body and CDOT staffing them to take on, but I think we're pleased that it landed in the jurisdiction that it did because we understand how you actually get projects done. And at the core, we all remain pragmatists. And to Kathy's point, we're laser focused on getting our plan done.
Thank you very much. I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to thank everybody for coming, and I'll pause just in case there's a late bloomer. Okay. Thanks so much, Commissioner Hall. Thank you, Director Liu. Thanks, Sally, and everybody else for joining us today. Really great. So where will you issue the report and how do people get to that before you go?
We will shortly after this discussion be issuing a press release that will have all the links you need, and it's going to live on the CDOT website, actually in the 10-year plan accountability section. Because, for all of our dashboards that are made for people in the field, this is something to provide accountability to the, everyday drivers who just want one place to go to, read an English translation of what we're doing.
Well said, well said.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We'll let you get out there and plow the roads now.
Looking good in Denver.
All right.
And
Thanks,
a
everybody.
hats off to our plow operators who are crushing it this winter.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you.
All right. Everybody have a great day.